Thank you so much. I would like to invite the filmmakers on to come on and join us for the Q&A. May Jack Youngelson please come, along with Sian Edwards-Beal and Tabitha. And our moderator for this evening, Colin Buckingham. Thank you. Absolutely. Just need one more chair. Chloe is producer and also here with us. I'm so sorry for not introducing you. We just got a perk.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us with this. So an immediate question I kind of had, and I know this was talked about in the film a bit, but I wanted to ask, since this film explores so many avenues and so many causes of PTSD through the lens of military service. And I know this was talked about in the film a bit, but could you all kind of share one misconception that you think still is pervasive about PTSD, and like what something that you kind of want to expand upon from the film, or something that you didn't get to really talk about that much?
I'm gonna let Jack start.
What about Tabitha?
I would say is definitely the causes, especially for when it comes to the pervasiveness that civilians have when it comes to PTSD. If you calculate all of the different causes, combat wouldn't even make the top 10 list because of how few people serve in the military, and then how like the numbers get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where combat is not a main cause. And then when people hear a veteran's got PTSD, then they still think combat, but then they're still like, no, like we get hit by hurricanes and trucks and other people too. It's not always combat. So yeah, just the overall cause that, yeah, like of all of my close personal friends, I know somebody who's got it from a traumatic birth experience, and another who got T-boned by a delivery truck. And it's like, it doesn't matter what your job is. It can hit anybody at any time. So if you see these symptoms, don't think like, okay, well, I've never been to Afghanistan, it can't be PTSD, because it very much can.
Thank you for saying that, because I mean, not to get to my own stuff, because this isn't about me. This is about all these people up here. But I do have PTSD. It was misdiagnosed, which I'm also glad the film really touched upon, as depression and anxiety and that kind of thing. But I had a similar thought of like, I have never been to war. I haven't, served in any sort of capacity that was, because like that's, the very basic equation that was in my head. So it was like war plus being home from that equals PTSD, and that's the only possibility. So I'm very grateful that this film touched upon that as well. My nesk question is, I'm learning a lot more about documentaries through helping with this festival and that kind of thing. Can you talk about the process of like interweaving the stories of Jason and John with the group therapy, and like in creating the narrative structure of it, and like any sort of challenges or little moments of joy that you found as you were lining up these stories?
Jack, you definitely can take that.
I'll just say briefly that it was really important to equally share the stories of women veterans alongside men, like male veterans, in the storytelling. And that was what we wanted to try to balance. And I think that there are many universal themes that come up throughout, and you could hear the story carry one from the next. So actually, we did spend a long time editing and finding those rhythms, but there are universal themes. And I think that that's what demystifies and destigmatizes some of the challenges around PTSD, because you hear that, as Tabitha said, in combat or not in combat, depending upon the trauma, depending upon your circumstances, there are very universal stories throughout.
And I guess this is for anyone here on the panel, like whether Tabitha's through you watching it or through you all making it, what was kind of something that either behind the scenes or through the process of making it struck you about each of the people that you were interviewing, as far as like something that was shared or that you didn't really expect to sort of be a common thread that was there apart from, you know, the obvious that was stated?
That's such a good question, because I think that in many ways, in making this film, that specific question was realized over and over again, which is to say that even though each of the people in our film had very specific things they were working through, what was very evident is that the feelings that people have because of their PTSD are universal. And you don't have to have lived through or experienced a traumatic event to identify with the challenges and some of the pain and struggles that the individuals in our film were coping with. And so in many ways, it was like this group therapy project, because we were all recognizing, and Diana says it at one point in the film, you walk into a room and more people have been exposed to a traumatic event than not. And that's something that was, I think, really powerful about this film, is that you suddenly realize how connected we are all through this shared feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Going through from the therapy side of things, when it comes to like realizing things, watching the film, one of our rules in group therapy was to never specifically discuss any of our traumas. So watching this movie was the first I ever heard about what Teresa had gone through. And the same for her and me. Like, I never spoke in group. Like, I think you can I could tell a couple times where I could see that my phrasing was awkward because I'm trying to say something without saying what had happened. But that is two things I think it helps with is, one, if you're worried about talking about stuff you went through with other people, you don't have to, just your therapist. And then I can't remember what my second thing was, so never mind.
No worries. So as this is a festival that features either films made by or featuring people with disabilities, and one of the understandings of disability is something that limits your ability to function in modern society that is due to an ableist mindset or inaccessibility. So I guess my question would be, had you had prior experience with that, or with disability or with that kind of mindset, and has working on this or seeing this or being the subject of this film kind of changed that mindset for you?
I think making this film, I don't think anybody who made this film or had any part of it, we were just watching all the names scroll by and reminding ourselves of how many people. We took 5 years to make this film, and there are a lot of people involved in it. There was no question that anybody who worked on this film wasn't changed by it. A lot of people who worked on the film went to get therapy for events in their lives after they had been participated in the film. And I think that there was a general awareness from everybody on the film, a heightened awareness that came about because of the courage of the people involved in the film, that there were people who were prepared to look at things and look at their own attitudes and look at themselves within the context of society and address things within themselves. So I think, yes, many people were changed. And certainly I was, by being part of it.
So I guess my next question would be like, obviously you said this has been 5 years in the making for this film, and I'm not sure like what number this is on as far as like your festival count or your interviews that you've done, but is there something that you kind of wish that people would ask you about this, or something that you haven't been asked before that like, you're like, I really just want to say this about this and no one's really given me the opportunity to, but I've been kind of chomping at the bit to do this.
Tabitha, what have you wanted to say?
Not to put y'all on the spot, but to do exactly that.
I always feel mean when I bring this up, but it is a lot of the way that I feel is that I don't ever want to, like, from the first time I met these folks, the point was like, well, we're trying to get like a message out there. And so many times it was brought up that it was a message of hope. But for me personally, I ended up in the 30% of people leaving Cincinnati that still met the diagnostic criteria for PTSD. And not only just PTSD, but severe and chronic PTSD. I'm on 100% disability from the VA for it. So I don't ever want anybody to go through thinking like, okay, well, I did the thing that the movie said and I'm still all messed up. So what's going on and what is wrong with me? And the answer to that, and the answer that I tell myself and don't listen to when I tell myself, is nothing. It's just the way it is sometimes. I have not found my niche. I have not found the medication that works for me. I haven't found the type of program that works for me. I still have PTSD and I have struggled with it for forevers. And even when it comes to like it being a disability, I don't realize how often I struggle with some things until I come to like events like tonight where everything was like catered to people with disabilities when it comes to like explaining every single step of the way, like what we used to call breaking it down Barney style, where a big purple dinosaur was going to tell me 2 + 2 is 4 90,000 times until I felt comfortable walking through the door. And most places for anything don't do that. And that is where my mindset is at. But yeah, it makes me super like nervous to be presented as like, this is what happens when you get treatment for PTSD, because it's not, that's not what I am, as much as I would like to be like a beacon of hope for some people. I know that I have made improvements, but I also know that I am still not okay. And I guess why does that make me feel bad? And it does, because like I feel like telling my story from that context sort of goes against how the film presents some things. And I don't like, not comfortable with that, but that is just how it is. And I have to be honest about it. The end.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like there's a lot of pressure sometimes with neurodiversity and PTSD and just disability in general to feel like once you find the thing that is supposed to work for you, to be happy all the time. And I feel like there's a great pressure that's taken off when people share stories like that. So I thank you for that vulnerable moment. I guess we should go to, does anyone have any audience questions?
Hi, I've met some of you before. I'm Lynn Bartner-Wiesel, one of the co-chairs for the film festival. Tabitha, I want to acknowledge your pain and maybe remind everybody that not it's the spectrum of PTSD, and you were serving your country and your own people violated you. It's different than when you're in combat and the bad guys come and blow you up. It came from the inside. People who were supposed to be your colleagues, your countrymen, your fellow people. So I hear you.
Thank you.
What inspired you to create this documentary?
Well, I'll answer that. Like, first of all, Tabitha, thank you for your honesty. Tabitha never tolerated us trying to put her in a box in any way. And I will tell you
They tried.
we tried. Well, multiple shoots. She just said, this is bullshit and I'm not doing this and don't put me in a box. And we tried to acknowledge and honor what she was saying. No, honestly.
No, it's just like how many times they tried to get me driving in the car. And I'm like, no, you guys, do you have any idea how dangerous that is? And I'm not stopping on the way to where I'm going to let somebody in the car so you can
Yeah.
record me in the car. So yeah.
But I would like to say one thing. The scene of Tabitha when she was in her bedroom, the montage scene when with the camera, we gave Tabitha her own camera and said to her to go shoot that scene or to go film herself. So she should actually have a camera credit on this film, quite frankly.
That's what I said before. And there was also another one of Lincoln crawling all over me. That was one of the GoPro things too.
But I mean, I just wanted to say that if anything, the goal for the film was to create honest dialogue, and whether or not Tabitha fully feels represented, and I think its expectations are baked into what you're talking about, because we don't want to give people the expectation in any way. As something we certainly wrestled with, that we didn't want to make the film a Pollyanna-ish film about recovery, but we wanted to provide a sense of at least hope, and that there are avenues to go down. For me, as a filmmaker and having made this film with an incredible team, it's also this opportunity to be in a room together and to talk about it, because you don't have that if you're looking at a laptop or at home alone, right? So that's what I hope. It could spark dialogue. It could spark conversation.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, one of the people that I still have contact with the most, Jackie, she wasn't like a huge part in the film, but she's fine now, like 100%. So it is like, even by the statistics that were presented in the film, I just happen to be in the shitty category.
Hi, Tabitha. I wanted to say thank you for your vulnerability in the film. And a question, I think, for you and for all the people here, I guess, is why did you agree to like let people film your therapy, and how the heck did you get people to agree to do the film in a really polite way?
I think a lot of it was because they asked us all at once and not individually. To be totally honest, like if anybody had come up to me individually and said, hey, we want to do this, I would have been like, hey, there's the door. But no, we were all together in a group, and I think it was Jack that initially made the proposal, and then we all just kind of talked to each other. And I want to say, I think in the film she's credited as Annie, was like number one, like, let's do this thing. And then like for me, I was just like, well, wait a second. Yeah, let's do this thing. And then I don't know, I can be kind of a ham sometimes too. And I was also like aware of the fact that like, and I actually did on a couple occasions. So there were some pivotal moments that didn't make it on screen because I told Daniel to go away, the cameraman, because I did not want to have that conversation with anybody but my therapist. So it was, yeah, like the fact that we got a group consensus to all agree that like, hey, this might actually be a good and helpful idea. And the fact that I knew I could withdraw consent at any time.
Thank you. Thank you all. And Tabitha, thank you so much for your comments. And because I think, you know, a lot of the time, particularly those of us with any type of disability, you know, there's this pressure or expectation that the end goal is fixing, as opposed to living with and maybe living fully with in all different ways, which is why I also appreciate very much you as filmmakers. The title is Here is Better. It's not here is the end point. Here is perfect. Here is, it's better. But I'm just curious about this relationship between PTSD and this classification of disability, and also the D, because I've heard a lot about, whether it should be considered a disorder, and particularly from the subjects you worked with, like, do they consider it, quote unquote, a disability, a quote unquote disorder? Like, what is, I guess I'm just curious about your feelings about that relationship between kind of like disability, disorder, all of these words that we throw at things.
When it comes to PTSD, and this is me speaking from the perspective of, I do also have a bachelor's degree in psychology, like this isn't even something that most people with PTSD know, is that when something like traumatic happens, you can also what's called just regular PTS, which is a post-traumatic stress response, where it's like, okay, heart racing, okay, now I'm a little bit jumpy, but that goes away. It's when it sticks around and attaches itself to irrelevant scenarios where you're obviously a-okay and you're still acting like something bad is going to happen. And I think when it comes to like utilizing the word disorder, anything in terms of a psychiatric or mental diagnosis is on that word treadmill, where eventually the word that was the right way to describe something is going to sound offensive. Like the R word used to be the doctor way to say something, and now that's like a slur that you can't even say. And any word like any disorder, disability is now kind of starting to get shoved down that treadmill, where even though like me personally, I'm fine saying, yes, I have a disability. But there are other people who are not fine with that, and that's where it's moving. But just when it comes to the DSM, that's how it's written. So that's what it is right now. Did I answer that effectively?
I'd say too, it was very fraught for us because you heard Jason talk about, he doesn't want to talk about it as a disorder. He thinks of it as an injury. Other people we spoke with said that's a terrible term and it should be post-traumatic growth. Other people want to change the language altogether. So we know the power of language. And I think, we settled on it because we have individuals in the film give their own take. We mentioned post-traumatic growth. We have Jason give his take, but language can be dangerous and it can put people in boxes as well.
Yeah, you hit a nerve on something that there was at least 2 years of discussion.
I want to thank you all for being here. I'm Isaac. I'm director of the festival. What should people do next? Give us the website. Tell everybody where to go.
Well, yes, hereisbetter.org. I think people, we know we just want people to see the film. We're in the process of discussing various deals. There will be a life for this film, not just at festivals, but beyond. And we'll keep everybody posted on the website about that. And really, we want to encourage conversation. We want people to open the door to a conversation about this subject. That's really, as Jack said, what this film is about. Tabitha, what would you like people to be doing?
In terms of what?
Well, I'm thinking, what are your, when you look at the film now, I'm just interested, when you think about people seeing it, what would you hope their takeaway be?
I would like to say like awareness, but I feel like it's not that exactly, because obviously people are aware of the fact that PTSD exists, but more like expanded knowledge as to how it manifests and by what mechanism. And then, yeah, for any veterans, I know this always comes up, and it's unfortunately or fortunately not that difficult. Is just the VA healthcare center that you're assigned to is where you need to go for help. Civilians, I cannot help you. I do not know.
Well, the suicide hotline can direct anybody who calls to support and help. And on our website, there are links to various organizations as well for anybody who needs any kind of support or help, who's suffering from PTSD or thinks they might be.
Folks, please share this film, share it. It's available this week virtually as well. Tell your friends to see this film. And thank you so much for this fabulous conversation and for being here with us.
For having us.
And thank you for excellent moderation too, stepping in there. No Bones, Scars of Survival is up at 8:30 here. Please join us for that. Tomorrow we have another day of films in our Accessibility Summit. And then our closing night is Wednesday. Please join us and tell your friends. Thank you so much.